We are now at the point where we are going to pull the drain plug and make sure there's the least amount of fluid as possible, because I don't want to make too much more of a mess in editor Dwayne's garage.
Except for right there.
Welcome to the shop. I'm Jared, and this is Wrench Every Day. Today, we're once again back at, I guess we'll call it Site Dwayne, Dwayne's driveway, the editor of Wrench Every Day. Currently not able to film at Site B. We'll kind of cover that in the future, depending on what all happens. But today, I am incredibly excited. This big, kind of rusty, gross piece of junk next to me is an amazing piece of American iron. It is a Chevrolet big block 454 cubic inch engine that I pulled out of the junkyard, and it's going to be the foundation for Earl's 1,000 horsepower ridiculous burnout machine. These are getting a little bit hard to come by. Sometimes you just have to take what you can get. Despite them being made for 30, 40 years, they're kind of drying up a little bit as crazy hot rodders get a hold of them and blow them up. And while there's a lot of people blowing up their engines, my goal is not to do that. I would like to go ahead and keep all the connecting rods deep inside the engine where they belong. And you know what else can help you keep something? Today's sponsor is the perfect company to help you, and that, of course, is Keeps. Did you know 2 out of every 3 men will experience some type of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35? Prevention is key. Doing something about it while you still have hair is important. I'll be honest, I've kind of noticed some whittle peaks going up, so I am doing something about it, and I'm going to start using Keeps myself. It's worked well for Tavarish, and it's time that I do something to keep my hair. Keeps has revolutionized the way that you treat male pattern baldness. Gone are the days of the awkward doctor visit and waiting in long pharmacy lines. With Keeps, you have a virtual doctor's visit, and they deliver a 3-month supply straight to your home. Again, prevention is key. It can take 4 to 6 months to start seeing results, so start today by going to keeps.com/wrencheveryday to save 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/wrencheveryday and save 50% on your first order. So again, this is a General Motors Chevrolet 454 big block, commonly called a big block Chevy or BBC. As you can tell, this is pretty much straight from the junkyard. It was, the information that I do have about it was roughly an 83 Chevrolet 3500 dually that was used to tow horses and pick up grain and may have a timing chain issue. On the outside, when you're shopping for these motors, there's different casting numbers on the back that kind of help clue you in to what the engine is, but that's not 100% of the story. Looking up the number that's on the back, and I'll show you once we get it inside, it's potentially kind of what they call the holy grail. The 4-bolt main bottom end with steel crank, which means it is the best platform to make tons of power, but it could also be 2-bolt main cast crank, which will still do what we need. It's just not quite as exciting. Now, again, those numbers only tell us half the story. What we need to do to find everything about this engine is take it apart. So I am going to go ahead and get this thing on an engine stand. Now, you may have noticed in the intro, I was kind of sweaty and looked like I had been wrenching all day. And that is because I had to buy several tools, including a massive gantry crane that won't fit inside even at its lowest. So we can pick that up and put it on a engine stand. And we had to put all that together. So I'm going to set up and we are going to get that thing inside, and then we're going to discover how good, bad, or what we got out of the junkyard. And fingers crossed, it's something really good.
right, now that we are inside and we have some artificial light, we can talk a small bit about GM casting numbers and then why we'll have to take the engine apart to find out exactly what we have in our big block Chevy. Again, no matter what, it's going to be great because it's going in a burnout car. So the first number that lets us know that our cylinder heads aren't the best would be this casting number here. And normally you'll hear them referenced just by the last numbers. So these are, I believe, 239, but they are what's called a peanut port, and we'll be able to kind of describe that once this manifold is off. I think they're the 079 or the most desirable heads, and I'm going to work to try to get a hold of that. The other number that is very important lives right here. Let's see if we can get it cleaned up a little bit so maybe we can read it. All right, so with that cleaned up a little bit better, you can see 140-15445. And that means it is, I think, 76 to 88 or 89, and most likely a 4-bolt main block. And again, once we take it apart, I can show what a 4-bolt, 2-bolt, what that means. It also means we have a very high probability of having a steel forged crankshaft, not a cast crankshaft, which again is going to handle the abuse much better. Another casting number you can also look at, and I don't know if this will have any information or if we can even clean it enough to see, but stamped on this little section of block will be generally a VIN number, a lot number, and some other information that doesn't directly correlate to our build, but you are able to, well, here, let me show you you are then able to decode that number and get more information. Again, confirm the VIN number, and again, you get the build week. People like Vice Grip Garage, they have all that memorized. I use the internet because that is way too much to remember. Also looking, and if you're ever looking at an engine, we see this little rust trace. This is a head gasket area. It's possible because the head bolts were removed and it had coolant still in it, it's weeped out some because you also see a little bit here, or it's possibly had a minor head gasket blow and has been leaking out there. Not a big deal because again, all of it's getting taken apart and serviced. One other thing is this was believed to have a timing chain issue, but I can take the crank and by hand get a little bit of movement. So there's the possibility that we have thrust washer issues, minor damage there. And then again, looking at this side, it's hard to read anything on a head gasket because you can just see kind of rust traces down the whole side of it. But yeah, I think it's time we get it apart. You may be wondering, what's the going rate for an engine this high caliber needing a little bit of rebuilding love to make lots of power and transform rubber into smoke? And if you can find a place that still does dollar chicken wing nights, you'd have 850 chicken wings. It has been a long time since I've gotten to play and build some big American iron, and I'm really excited for it. One of the engines I really cut my teeth on was my old Chevy 305 small block, and it was in my circle track race car, and I spent a lot of time working on it because it turns out when you don't know what you're doing, you do it wrong an awful lot. But I eventually learned and quit having to redo it. and then I got crashed. So, you know, things happen. I'm not quite sure why an intake manifold has that much oil and what looks like a water heater there, but that's 80s emissions and I don't understand any of it. But we got ourselves the intake manifold off. Let's see if we can not blind you from the light. These are our push rods. You can, don't worry, we're cleaning that. You know, we didn't have a squirrel living there, it's fine. There's our camshaft, and those have our lobes, and they move and actuate these lifters, which then come up, push the rocker arms, which push on the valve and valve spring, opens the valves and closes the valves. Again, this engine was supposed to have a timing chain issue. So we see how all of that looks. All of those push rods. And then we're going to come over here, start back there. Wait, what is this? Huh. That looks a lot like a push rod. Uh-oh. So, I don't know that we had a timing chain issue as we did a push rod issue. It spat that lifter up, which that has me a little worried we may find a little bit of metal and that crank may not be good, because when these lifters come up, they very rapidly lose oil pressure. And when you lose oil pressure, you lose your engine bearings. But I guess it just means a potential opportunity to upgrade, right? Maybe. So you remember when we were talking about casting numbers, I said these are what are called peanut port. And what they mean is just how small our intake opening is. So you can see this outline even just from the gasket material left over, and you can see how much bigger that is than the port. There are actually cylinder heads that have larger ports than this from the factory. So power is limited by the amount of air you can get into an engine, and as you can tell, our little babies aren't going to cut it. We also got our valve cover off, and as you can expect, with no push rod to help hold it in place, that rocker is off of that valve. And you know, it's kind of hard with an engine that sat to tell the condition of anything else. This rocker's loose, but it's also at the closed position. So next up, we are going to go ahead and pull all of our rocker arms off, our push rods, and get these cylinder heads off after making sure this engine turns over, because if it's locked up, that's going to be a bit of a bummer, but it could still be a good builder core. It just may mean we paid a few too many chicken wings for it. Okay, so we're going to start over here with our cylinder heads. Again, they're not the most ideal being peanut port. We could always reuse them, but they're really good at telling us the health of the engine. We can follow through and see through all of our sealing surfaces on that cylinder head. There are no traces of leak. So that means that rust most likely came just from the engine storing. You can again follow our nice clean gasket path all the way around, and everything is secure. Now we do have a lot of scale, and it's obvious that the engine will want a refresh, but you know, that's what we're doing. We're building it for power. Here are our head gaskets. Again, and making sure you keep the right coolant and good mixtures are important. You can see in some of these spots where it's rusting and actually was working its way through eating through that gasket. So it wasn't leaking yet, but would be very soon. So we can take these apart and we'll throw them kind of the trash. That was a lot of rust that came bouncing up. We got our broken push rod there. And as we come down here, the holes that had the bolts removed are rusted, so I'm gonna have to tap those. As we look at our cylinder walls, there's still some crosshatch, but unfortunately from sitting, we've picked up a decent amount of flash rust. It's not been rebuilt before. Normally you would see an 030, 060 that references how many thousandths of an inch larger in diameter that hole will be. We're starting with a 454. As we go bigger and we have it punched out, we can actually get up to 461 cubic inches. Like, we can gain displacement very quickly. So, where we're at with our really exciting big block for Earl. I'm still excited because, well, it's a big block. You can't be not excited. Plus we have that surprise that you're going to see here in a little bit with the engine magically back together. We are now at the point where we are going to pull the drain plug and make sure there's the least amount of fluid as possible, because I don't want to make too much more of a mess in father-in-law editor Dwayne's garage. But we are going to pull the oil pan and find out, did we get a 4-bolt and do we have a steel crank? And I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good, guys. And let's see what happens. We don't have any metal flake. We did have it completely full of oil, and I'm willing to bet as soon as this rolls over, a bunch of coolant's gonna come out too. So, keeping
I was thinking the same thing.
But I'm gonna keep the floor really clean this time, like I promised. No messes.
Thank you, except for right there.
That was already there.
Oh,
That's the Highlander. You should take it in under warranty. I'm not sure, is that a cat or is that a dog or a squirrel? Rodent? I don't know. I don't know where it came from. But, well, apparently I can't pet it. Okay, nope. Well, as our luck would have it, we've got a 2-bolt main block. It's still plenty strong for our goal, but you know, having extra room for stupidity, leave the coolant alone. Having a little bit of extra room for stupidity is preferred, and I don't have that. So our next hope was the strength of a steel... Out of here, you squirrel. Our next hope would have been the steel crank. And it's steel, but it's cast, not forged. So, you know, leave it to us to have the luck of a 90% chance of a 4-bolt forged crank. And we have a cast and 2-bolt. All right, guys, I guess you're jumping out of the DeLorean to join me in the past. And if you stuck around, you get to see the first part of the ridiculousness of what we have planned for Earl's big block Chevy. Remember when I said we wanted a big intake, big blower, big everything? Well, check this out. We have got a tunnel ram. Step one of an amazing engine, tunnel ram. You've got to go square one there. I mean, you just, yeah, you can, well, I can't fit my hand, but most people here, I can do there. I can fit my arm through the intake that we're running on Earl. It is insane. Now, it is set up for dual carbs. Well, look at that. Now it's set up for whatever we want. The reason this tunnel ram was so important is this adapter plate and that connected area beneath it, because we are going to build our own adapter plate to accept a supercharger intercooler and then the supercharger on top of it. So I was incredibly excited when Gary and the guys at Twister Engine let me know that they had this intake. Normally it is like a 3-month at best wait to get your hands on one of these, and we've got it for Earl. Now let's go ahead and I guess go back to the future where this engine is taken a little bit further apart, and you know a lot more about its condition than I do. Tell me it's good, please. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Well, welcome back from the tunnel ram land where things were still exciting, and if we're honest, it's still very exciting. Sure, we've got a 2-bolt block and we've got the cast crank, and probably paid 350 chicken wings too much for it. But that's life. If you're ever shopping for a big block engine or even small block engine, don't trust just a casting number. This is proof positive. Every indicator was we were going to have the biggest, baddest, best based only on casting numbers. And we take it apart. And again, it's still a great engine. We're going to have plenty of cubic inches, and it's going to very efficiently turn gasoline into tire smoke. So you can't go wrong there. I am so excited. Next time we're working with this engine, I've got to actually jump and order some parts. We're going to get our pistons that we need to machine all of our bearings, and we are going to hopefully take a field trip to the machine shop where we're going to go through some of the machining process, both on our engine block and on the cylinder head. So it's going to be a really cool time to see this engine transform and get ready. And then we've got a lot more parts to order. The supercharger, the transmission. It's going to get expensive fast, but sponsors that help us out, Keeps, thank you so much. Support them again. Keeps.com/wrench every day. We love having them on board because it helps us do these insane builds. We put pretty much everything we get in back into these crazy projects because that's a questionable choice. Again, if you'd like to support us with merch, if you want one of these shirts or any of our others, our bunker branding page has all of that. And again, coming soon are going to be some keychains and stickers. We're working on some of our final designs, and we're happy to share them with you. And, well, you guys are going to get to go and enjoy your morning, evening, whenever you're watching this. And I've got a mess to clean up, so we can continue using this space because we're running out of filming locations. I'm Jared, reminding you to always make questionable choices, and when the neighbor's dog comes around, go ahead and shoo him away from the antifreeze like it's your own dog, because that's the right thing to do. We'll see you.